Thank you. Is there, there we go. So glad to be back. I know the last time I was here and shared drug treatment court outcomes, there were questions about outcomes for other programs, in particular outcomes for drug treatment court or diversion programs that we could compare either to state averages or other counties. So this touches on that, and excited to share with you guys. Also joining us via Zoom is Professor Stefan Schultz for UW-Milwaukee. He is our research and evaluation specialist for these programs. So he's our expert that is from an outside entity that helps conduct these evaluations, helps ensure research and evaluation integrity and objectivity. So
we welcome him. Thank you.
So today we're going to start with a very brief overview of what is the traditionally called the TAD program, also much longer name, the Opioid Stimulant DPA Diversion Program. Then talk about the recidivism analysis or recidivism study that was conducted and its results, and then share brief other TAD program outcomes. And finally, Q&A. So what are we doing and why? Is it working? And how can we tell? And what else would you guys like to know? TAD program overview. So this is why we call it the TAD program. Its funding source is the Wisconsin Department of Justice Treatment Alternatives and Diversion Grant. So we say TAD for short. This program, the Opioid Stimulant DPA Diversion Program, is post-charge, post-plea, pre-conviction. So an individual has to be arrested, charged, then enter into a deferred prosecution agreement with the district attorney's office, and the program occurs before they are sentenced. Our target population are individuals that are adults charged with a drug possession offense. Currently, it's called the Opioid Stimulant DPA Diversion Program because it focuses on individuals that are charged with possession of narcotic drugs, possession of opiates, or possession of stimulants. Individuals have to have a substance use disorder. That's the primary purpose of these programs. And there are more details about our target population that I may get into a little later without listing the entire list here. But if you guys have any questions about target population more, please ask later. So our DPA diversion program started in 2017. We've been going for 7 years now, so quite a long run. And thankfully, the reason it's taken us this much time to conduct a recidivism study, if you guys remember from last time, is we need enough participants to have completed the program or been discharged from the program. So we have statistical significance with a recidivism study. The program length is 12 to 18 months. It's a minimum of 12 months or a year long. We do allow extension up to 18 months if the individual going through the program needs it. We have a wide range of clients with varying treatment needs. Some clients need longer to complete the program. The program provides treatment. That's all kinds of treatment: mental health, substance use, psychiatric, medication-assisted treatment, case management services, accountability, another word for frequent witness drug testing. Accountability sounds nicer. And supportive services, and that's really depending on the individual. There's peer support services, trying to connect them to the recovery community, and then a host of other social services that, depending on what they need, we help connect them to. The program maintains sobriety. It requires clients to engage in the recommended treatment, to adhere to drug testing, and any individual recommended services. So TAD program and recidivism. Whether or not clients reoffend, is a primary outcome or measure of the success of diversion programs and drug treatment courts. So it's one of our two primary goals to reduce recidivism. So saying individuals that enter into our programs will reoffend less than the individuals that aren't. And why? Because we believe that by providing clients with a substance use disorder, diagnosis, issue, concern, problem, by providing them with services and addressing the root substance use disorder, that they will then decrease the criminal behavior that is related to their ongoing substance use. Now getting into the TAD recidivism analysis, and here's where Stefan in a short while will be presenting the majority of this. So this aims to answer the primary question: do TAD program participants recidivate at a lower rate compared to individuals that aren't in the program? And with that, if we are able to unmute Stefan, he will take over talking about our methods.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Just first of all, thank you for allowing me to call in remotely. I'm down at the UW Milwaukee main campus in Milwaukee. I just got out of a class, so I appreciate you accommodating me and allowing me to call in. So as Andy mentioned, we're looking at whether or not TAD program participants recidivate at a lower rate. And in order to answer that question, on slide 7, I think that's where we're at right now, we tracked 139 TAD graduates as well as non-graduates who were admitted to the program between 2017 and 2021. We have 71 graduates and 68 non-graduates. Our main measure of recidivism was a new charge for any new crime or a new charge for a drug-related crime, specifically within 2 years of graduation for the graduates or 2 years after termination for the non-graduates. And then our main comparison that we want to look at is a control group of 151 Washington County offenders who were convicted for possession of narcotics between the years 2013 and 2016. Violent and high-risk offenders were removed from that group to match the eligibility requirements for the participants in the TAD program. And the measure of recidivism for that comparison group of Washington County offenders was also a new charge for any crime or a new charge, again, for a drug-related crime within 2 years of the judicial disposition date for that group. And we're using this Washington County control group because it's the most similar to our TAD OPI group, except for one important difference. Of course, clearly, that control group did not have access to treatment and diversion. So we want to see, how does our Washington County TAD group, specifically our TAD graduates, how do they compare to these other Washington County offenders who do not have access to treatment and diversion? So that's what I want to focus on in the next slide, slide 8. Okay, great. So on this slide, I just want to focus your attention on the numbers that are above the bars that have been slightly enlarged and bolded. These represent recidivism rates for our Washington County TAD graduates and the Washington County control group. So if you look at the blue bars all on the left, those are recidivism rates for any new charge for a crime. And then all the orange bars on the right are showing you recidivism rates for a new drug charge. And what we can see on the left then is that the Washington TAD OPI graduates, they picked up a new charge for any crime at a rate of 15.5%. That means 15.5% of Washington TAD graduates picked up a new charge for any crime within 2 years of graduation. How does that compare to our control group? You can see just to the right of that, 38% of Washington County offenders who did not have access to TAD OPI picked up a new charge for a new crime. So that's significantly different comparing our TAD graduates to our control group of Washington County offenders. And then on the right, the orange bars, what about recidivism for a new drug charge, drug-related charge specifically? 12.7% of Washington TAD graduates picked up a new drug charge within 2 years of graduation, and you can compare that to 23% for the Washington County control group. So the bottom line is, does TAD OPI work for offenders who go through the program and successfully graduate? The answer is yes. Washington County TAD OPI graduates have lower recidivism rates. And as Andy pointed out, these results are statistically significant. And then finally, I'll finish off by saying, because we are confident that TAD OPI does work when clients successfully graduate from the program, at least in terms of recidivism, we ran a separate analysis to figure out what the determinants of graduation are versus termination. We'd like to move as many people towards graduation as possible. So on the next slide, which is slide 9. In that separate analysis, based on the data that we have available, we discovered that TAD clients, participants who go into the program who are employed, are more likely to graduate from the program. TAD participants who score low on the criminogenic risk assessments that they take are more likely to graduate. And TAD clients who have some college work, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, they're also more likely to graduate successfully from TAD compared to our participants who maybe dropped out of high school or just have a high school diploma. So I think that's what I want to focus on for now. I'll hand it back over to Andy.
Awesome. Thank you, Stefan. Last part there, just 2 slides that focus on other TAD outcomes. The primary one is our graduation rate compared to Wisconsin averages and compared to similar diversion programs. So the green bar is our Washington County TAD program. The gray bar are all diversion programs in the state of Wisconsin from, now I need to remember the years. Over a 5-year period, I believe ending in 2017. So 2012, 2017, somewhere around there. The blue bar, that's if we only include the other diversion programs in the state of Wisconsin that are similar in target population and structure. So diversion programs across the state can work with individuals that have a mild or moderate substance use disorder instead of a severe one. They can work with individuals that maybe have a first-time marijuana possession offense versus individuals that are charged with possession of heroin or possession of narcotic drugs. Some diversion programs may be 6 months, 9 months in length instead of 12. And there are a variety of structures. Some diversion programs are pre-charged, so it's like law enforcement diversion. Before they're even charged by the district attorney, there's a diversion effort taking place, and usually that occurs with lower risk, lower need individuals. So our goal, one, was to show for transparency, certainly where our program compares to the state overall diversion programs, you will see that our program is lower when you're grouping all diversion programs in the state of Wisconsin funded by TAD together. Our graduation rate from January of 2017 to December of 2023, 51.2%. State averaged for all diversion programs 63.4%. However, if we're looking at programs that are similar in target population and structure to ours, their average graduation rate across Wisconsin was about 46.8%. So we are a little higher, or really we're right on par. Wanted to provide that. We don't, I believe there was a question the last time I was here about if we do direct comparison to other counties. And we included the Wisconsin kind of average graduation rates and those of comparable programs because there is such significant difference from county to county, program to program, that doing a direct county to county comparison really isn't the best way to evaluate this. And this just shows our participant outcomes at discharge, comparing individuals that graduate versus those that don't graduate. Our goal in these programs, regardless if someone graduates or does not graduate, is to do all we can to help the individuals not only engage in treatment, but improve psychosocial stability in areas, life domains across the board. There are many measures that can be associated with that. I picked 4. Do the individuals have their driving privileges or a driver's license? Do they have a safe living situation? Safe meaning it's free from active substance abuse, it's free from any emotional, physical abuse, free from neglect. Are they employed part-time or full-time? And do they have access to health insurance? While our graduates are higher than those that are terminated or do not graduate, I wanted to highlight both that our graduates have significantly high percentage of them graduate with, I would say, the positive side of these categories the majority of the time. But those that don't graduate also seem to have stability in these areas the majority of the times, which to me reflects our efforts to help improve overall stability during their participation, however long that may be. And with that said, wanted to recap, TAD graduates are significantly less likely to recidivate for a new charge, any criminal charge or drug charge, compared to our Washington County control group. Our graduates are recidivating similarly to graduates from other TAD programs in Wisconsin, those that are comparable. And our graduation rate, sorry, just said that one, equivalent to comparable diversion programs, and our graduates demonstrate stability in multiple life areas at the time of graduation. And now, questions?
Okay, so I'm looking at the chart showing the recidivism rate. This is on page 8. And one of the things that's interesting to me is when you look at overall TAD participation and what the recidivism is, and you compare that to the control group, the difference is not quite as dramatic as I would have expected. So I was trying to think, well, what are some reasons why that could be happening? And one possibility is because part of that time they're in jail. So you can't commit a new drug crime when you're in jail. Or, well, maybe you could get it smuggled in, but it's a lot harder to do. What did you use as your criteria for that control group for recidivism? And if you already said this and I missed it, I apologize. But
Stefan?
Yeah, I think I heard that question. So for the control group, that's a good point, and that's something we were struggling with. Is what if they're spending time in jail? Wouldn't that skew the results? Essentially, is what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't commit a new crime while they're in jail. So I think Andy looked this up, and he kind of determined that the average length of time for an offender who's been convicted of narcotics possession to spend in jail is about 142 days. So we just added 142 days to that judicial disposition date, and we actually ran the clock of 2 years of recidivism after that time, trying to eliminate some of that bias from people being in jail.
okay.
So hopefully we're trying to get as close as possible to actual recidivism when they would be at risk of committing a new crime.
So I'm kind of thinking that through. Somebody who has less of a criminal history might have gotten a shorter time than an average, and they'd be less likely to recidivate. Somebody who had a longer history, they might have a much longer time that they're serving in jail. They're more likely to recidivate, but we're not capturing a full 2 years after their release because we're going on the average rather than their own actual time in jail. So let's say, for example, person X, they have a bad criminal history, so they're sentenced to 12 months. But we start the clock at 141 days, which is about 4.5 months. So their first 7.5 months of that time we're looking at, they're in jail and cannot without smuggling drugs into our jail system, reoffend. You get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, they could also assault another inmate or an officer. There are lots of ways to reoffend in jail.
That is true, there are.
No.
Did I stay corrected on that? Yeah.
No, it is an excellent point, and without that detailed of individual level data, so that for every single individual in the control group, we know their disposition date. We have data from the jail to know, because everyone reports to jail at a different date.
Yeah.
It's not always necessarily date of sentencing or.
So we'd almost need to see their release date and get that specific.
Exactly, yeah. And now we're combining
Yeah.
data from multiple sources: state level court data, county jail data, and I would love to do that. I'll say it now. If if in the future we ever have access to that degree of data, would love to do that thorough of an evaluation. But
It can get a little tricky putting that much work into the evaluation too. Like, how much work do you put into this to get the most accurate number possible? That can get a little tricky too. The other thing that was interesting is statewide, the trends overall seem lower than our county. But I know some of that could be accounted for with some of the counties being less prone to charging people than we are here in Washington County. I think we're much tougher at charging people and convicting people than, say, a Dane County or Milwaukee County, or, you know, to kind of pick on two that kind of spring to mind. But so that's kind of an interesting factor that I found in here. But even so, our graduates are performing better than the statewide graduate average. That is one area where we clearly perform better than statewide. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of cool to see.
it is. And you're absolutely right. There are a number of factors and reasons from the law enforcement to the court system of other counties. I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's a wide range of difference in just the other types of diversion programs. So if there are other diversion programs in the overall average that say serve only individuals charged with first-time marijuana possession, or don't serve anyone with moderate or high criminogenic need, then kind of by default they would be less likely, or by average, based on information we have about averages for other populations, those less severe or less risk related clients or target populations would have lower recidivism. But yeah, there are a ton of factors, which is also what makes this kind of evaluation so interesting.
And tricky to do and make sure you're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and that's one of the reasons we also not just used the state averages, but also had a Washington County control group.
Yeah.
And so those are, I know Stefan covered it, but those are individuals that were charged with the same offense, possession of narcotic drugs, from a period prior to when Washington County offered the TAD program. And our graduates are doing better than those individuals in terms of recidivism, both any crime and drug offense. So,
Yeah. Just to put a bow on it, my opinion, these are good programs that we need to continue. I appreciate having all this great data, so thank you.
absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes. Chair?
Thank you. I have two questions. The first is, how many graduates do we have now? I thought I heard there was another one in the last month or so.
If you are asked for the DPA diversion program or drug treatment court,
Drug treatment court. Two different things.
I would be able to get that for you right. 19.
You knew it all
Right
along.
behind them.
Thank you very much. And I forgot the other question, so I also appreciate the programs, and the numbers seem to show we're doing some good, so keep it up.
Absolutely, thank you.
Anything else? Are you going to move on in the presentation, or?
No,
No, okay. Yes. Shall I?
The data you showed that time and treatment is 12 to 18 months, and I'm confusing with drug court again, but I thought it was 18 and more to get through the program. But this is a different program, understood?
yes.
Okay.
The TAD program, or the DPA diversion program, is a minimum of 12 months with a maximum of 18 months. Drug treatment court is a minimum of 14 months. It's the quickest anyone could complete it if they were 100% compliant the entire time. The longest period I believe is that we've had so far, I believe is close to 2 years. Is that right? 24 months.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, I, for one, just would really appreciate you doing all of this and putting the data together for us, especially because we asked last time about data and numbers, and that helps us to totally understand and visualize the impact of the program. So thank you very much, Andy.
Oh, you're very welcome, and huge thanks to Stefan. He has been working with these programs for 7, 8 years now. Long time, and this would not be possible without him. So huge thanks to Stefan. He's fantastic.
Thank you. Did you have any other comments, Stefan? Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much.
All right. Our next item is the housing needs for behavioral health clients. And Julie's going to present on that.
Yes, so good evening. So not a huge presentation to give today. Essentially, want to bring this issue to your attention. I did hand out the beginning framework of a new EOS goal for Health and Human Services. What we're finding is that with the rising cost of rent, across the country, many of our clients in behavioral health who are on Social Security disability have very limited income, are having a difficult time finding housing. In the past, we have had a number of landlords who worked directly with our department and would house a number of our clients and work with us in that situation. But we're finding that to be less and less as those landlords can obtain higher rents for their locations than our clients can afford. Recently, when I talked with some of our case managers and asked them what they thought would be a reasonable rent for one of our clients to afford, they said $500 to $600 a month, which, as you may or may not know, is almost non-existent in any community. So this is a good big issue for us. It's becoming increasingly challenging for our staff, and so we're working on trying to figure out how we can solve this problem. So we have decided to create an EOS goal so that we can report back to this committee the work that we're doing and trying to find that solution, because I anticipate potential solutions will come with some type of request to this body. So our first steps are going to be just doing a further analysis of the housing gaps and the actual need, meaning what are the real numbers of housing out there? What are the real affordable costs to our clients? What can they afford based on their income? And then meeting with our community partners that are experts in housing and homelessness needs in the community, and talking with them about viable potential solutions. And then putting those solutions together, or those options together, reporting that to this committee, and then ideally implementing at least one solution so that we can start trying to have a sustainable option for the clients that we serve within behavioral health. So again, primarily just wanted to bring this to your attention. So I will be coming back in the next quarter to report on our progress with this, and hopefully we'll have something finalized within the next 9 months. Any questions about that?
Actually, yes, I have one, Julie, to start. Is this separate from any kind of transitional housing? Is this beyond transitional? Once they've completed transitional than actually just being on their own in an apartment or whatever.
Yes, that's correct. We have, a number of different clients who have different needs. And so a lot of times when we talk about transitional living, we're typically talking about people who are going through substance abuse treatment, and that they go through treatment and they need a transitional place to live while they secure employment, and they, are able to save for a first month's rent, and they further themselves in their sobriety. And that is what the RFP that we're issuing for sober living aims to help support. This housing need is primarily more for our clients who have mental health needs. Some of them could also have substance abuse needs as well, but they're stabilized in the community. They don't need a higher level care, say, of a adult family home or a CBRF. They can live independently in the community, but they work with us around managing their mental health, taking their medication, independent living skills. But most of our clients typically are on Social Security disability. And so that is it's a limited income. Sometimes people work a little extra. Sometimes they're not able to, depending on what their disability is. And so there's just not a lot of options for them, outside of Section 8 or what the Housing Authority might offer. And so those are one of the partners that we are scheduling to start to talk with to see if there's something specific that we can do for this population, or if there's other resources for them to become eligible for these types of benefits, so to speak.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. Yes, Supervisor Bossert.
So I'm guessing as part of this, you're going to look at other communities that have faced this problem or are facing this problem and seeing what they're doing right now to try to address it. Have we done any preliminary work in that regards? Is there anything we're seeing where other communities are seeing success in this, or are they all right now struggling like we are?
I would say, so the first point, yes, we plan to look at what other communities are doing. We have not started that work yet. This is just a very preliminary beginning of this initiative. I would say, from what I know, that most communities face this same issue, but some communities have implemented strategies to mitigate it.
Okay, do you know what any of those strategies are offhand, or?
So they can vary from finding a person or a landlord in the community, and other counties have offered funding for the purchase of, say, a building, and then the county works with that landlord to provide that rent or assure that rent. We have in the past had something that we called supportive apartments, where we worked with a provider who had sort of an apartment building, and they had on-site quasi-case management, but they pulled out of service from us in 2020, 2021, because it just wasn't viable for them any longer. So that is still also an option to find somebody to work with around this sort of idea of supportive apartments. I think what's going to be tricky is the issue that we're having right now around the market value of rents, and a landlord being willing to work with us to give something at a lower rent cost. And so what I have seen sort of in Milwaukee and Waukesha is some level of the county subsidizing this effort for these landlords to essentially work with these clients with these needs.
Okay. And these clients, are they generally going to remain on Social Security for the rest of their life, or is there some point at which they're likely to be more self-sufficient and actually have like a full-time job?
So most of the clients will remain on disability. They have some level of disability. The work that they do with our department is to keep them maintained in the community. And so individually, obviously people make progress and improve their situation, but there's no anticipation that all of a sudden they're going to be, a self-sustaining 40-hour work individual because of their mental health and their disability. And this work that we do in this particular population is really sort of the work that's happened over the last several decades around trying to deinstitutionalize folks with mental health needs.
I have another question as far as the percentage of homeless people against those in need, and that are, what percentage of them would you guess are homeless? Is it a large percentage or a smaller percentage at this time? Do you have them?
I don't have that data. I think that because that's one of our first steps is really to deep dive into what's the actual number. And what do you categorize folks, right? And I'm not an expert in housing and homelessness, which is why we want to engage those partners. But there are various categories around what is determined to be homeless. Sort of there's the idea of what a lot of people think about of living on the streets. But then there's also, when you're doubling up or you're sort of couch surfing. And that is another type of category that people, identify as homelessness as well.
So different gradient levels of it, sure. And then when thinking of the homeless, I think of an organization like Family Promise. And will Family Promise take people on SSD with behavioral health issues?
They do, but Family Promise is pretty booked up as well. And so right now, we have meetings scheduled with Family Promise, with both the Housing Authority in Hartford and the Housing Authority in West Bend, and then a homeless shelter out of Waukesha that has some footprint in Washington County as well. And so right now, those are the meetings that are on the calendar to start having this conversation to get their expertise and input into how we can come up with a solution for this issue.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, it looks to be an endeavor, an exciting one to try to uncover and be able to provide assistance in some ways to these people.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That concludes our agenda. Our next meeting date is Wednesday,